you guys for listening to Johnny and TheGreg. Here we are again. Greg looks so serious. We're ready to get into some huge topics today. I'm just kidding. For those of you that have been here for hours, days, years, thank you. Like and subscribe if you like what you see. And we are partnered by Audible, and that's where I'm going to turn it over to Greg because he's getting really good at this. Go.
Oh, stop. But yeah, we are partnered with Audible. So if you would like 30 days of Audible on us, you can go to audibletrial.com/JATG for hundreds upon thousands of audiobooks, all for your choosing of every type of list and genre, as well as podcasts, educational material, even some comedy stuff on there. It's kind of fun. I'm getting in a little bit to like these old timey radio shows where they have celebrities. I mean, it is a radio show. They're doing a full on drama reading with sound effects and everything else. Is pretty cool. So if you would like to get yourself some of that, you can go again to audibletrial.com/JATG. John.
There you go. Thank you, Greg. For today's podcast, we're going to go over three things. Unfortunately, the first one we're going to go over with is the sudden death of Bob Saget. We just got done with a podcast last week, kind of highlighting the two big deaths before.
And there was another one. There was another one even before that. This week.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and then we're going to hit down our top 5 werewolf movies. So those of you that love your lists, get your brains thinking on what are your top 5 werewolf movies. If there's anybody listening that can type in your comments.
If you want to comment,
yes,
we're here.
Yeah. And then we're going to go through Johnny and TheGreg's top TV shows of 2021, which will pretty much be spearheaded by Greg because I'm still not watching half of what this guy's watched. So,
nope.
And I don't think I'll see for the foreseeable future. It won't be that much. But anyway, Bob Saget.
Yeah. Well,
wow.
A couple. I mean, that's the Sun one, and he was all of 65 years old. Found in his hotel room in Orlando. He was staying at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. The thing is right now, and I know there's going to be a lot of rumors surrounding this of like, hey, former TV star, now stand-up comedian, found dead in his hotel on the road. There's going to be a lot of rumors that come up about everything else. But the important thing right now is that the Orlando Police Department that took the call and found him. They're like, there seems to be no sign of foul play. There is no drug paraphernalia found around the hotel room. So really, who knows? It could be any number of things from like a brain aneurysm to a heart attack or whatever. So
it's shocking. It's Danny Tanner.
Yeah,
in the 90s, he was everybody's dad.
He was a TV dad for sure that everybody is now going to miss. So,
in fact, he was so much of a dad when I first heard his stand-up. I was blown away. I was like, oh, Mr. Tanner, you don't talk like that.
He was a filthy stand-up.
Yeah, he really was.
We're right up there with, I don't even know who you put him up there with, like early 80s Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor or Sam Kinison.
He was
just lots of adult based humor.
Yeah.
And the shock value is that it was Danny Tanner. But
even
before
I grew up, he was Danny Tanner to us, and then we heard that he did stand up,
and we got into it.
And then we watched it, and we were like, oh. And I'm not talking about you and I watched it together or anything like that. It was just one of those situations where we came across it, we found it, we watched it, and we're like, he's one
of those types of comedians.
Yeah,
okay,
he's one of those guys. Wow, I didn't see that.
And kind of the thing about it is even before he was Danny Tanner, that was his style of comedy. Like he always did that kind of stand up. And then he got hired for Full House. And this was the days before the internet or anything else. So no one had really tracked down his stand up because he wasn't a huge stand up comedian at the time.
Right.
He was just kind of this dad guy. And then they pegged him for this wholesome, Friday night sitcom. And so that became his image. Meanwhile, he's like, I'm totally not this guy.
Well, it's kind of funny. Today, I kind of did a Full House moment. I mean, he was the one that and I could be wrong about this, but he's the one that I remember that would have that the music would cue. And he'd take one knee and he'd be talking to his little girl and teaching her like that week's lesson. And it was awesome. And I find myself doing that with my daughter, taking one knee. I'm hearing the music in the background. And I'm telling you, like, we don't do that. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's shocking and it's sad because
when he was young. I mean, he was, again, 65 is not old by anybody's standards anymore.
No, of course not. No.
So it's
sad. Rough. And I guess what even makes it sadder is right now it feels like a lot of people are passing on. And it also feels like as I'm getting older, I should say, as we're getting older, the people that were, I guess, on our radar, they are now passing away. And we're like, oh my God, that guy. I used to watch that guy on TV in the 90s, and it kind of hits you. It shocks you a little bit. I watched Golden Girls. I think that was the night. Was that the 80s, late 80s, the Golden Girls?
No, it was late mid 80s.
Mid 80s. Okay. It was, Betty White and John Mann I listened to in the 90s, and now Bob Saget. And again, like you said, there have been other people that have passed away. There are two that I didn't mention last podcast that are more football related. Dan Reeves, the old Bronco and Atlanta Falcons head coach, passed away, as well as a beat reporter for the Chicago Bears that passed away, Brad Biggs. Not Brad Biggs. Sorry. JD, Jeff Dickerson. So yeah, it's shocking. It sucks. So on a lighter note, it's not really a lighter note for them, but for us, I don't know why, dude. I get excited about this time of year because I want to see who's getting fired in the NFL.
Yeah. Today's the day.
Yeah, tomorrow is Black Monday.
Coming down.
Yeah, tomorrow's Black Monday, which a lot of people go. I expect big changes in Hallis Hall. I'm hearing rumors that there's not going to be as big as I want them to be, which will it's like putting a gun to your head at this point with those guys. Yeah. So that's always interesting. Who do you think's what person are you? Like, do you get into that, Greg? Do you care?
Not as much as. Definitely not as much as you do.
No.
I think I pay a little bit more attention to it now because these are getting to be guys that are around my age. Like some of the head coaches, and I mean, we're aging up to the point where like the head coaches are now kind of in our peer group. I mean, right. where you're like, oh, here's a guy who, he played in college and then he went to coach college and then he was brought up through that system and was an assistant coach for somewhere else and then got a head coach job. And, for one reason or another, now he doesn't have a job anymore. And you're like, ooh, how's that work out?
Well, they'll be fine without a doubt.
They will. Yes. Those guys literally make millions of dollars.
Yeah. And I believe all of their money is guaranteed unless they do something wrong. All their money's pretty much guaranteed. So
the other thing is like what I kind of almost pay more attention to is when guys are going to be hired on, because now they're going to be going after those like offensive defensive coordinator type guys that are even more solidified in our age group or younger and being like, ooh, are they going to pull some like super young guy out from somewhere and, see if they can, see if they can get the next Matt LaFleur kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, first comment of the night is up from Dale, and he says, fire the Bears owner. I mean, as a Packers fan, they should continue to run the team into the ground, and he's absolutely right. The McCaskies.
Yep. This is what's infuriating about the McCaskies. And of course, I could go on forever about this. In fact, I have in some situations. Poor Greg has had to hear me call him up in the middle of the week bitching about it.
Yeah. Did you hear this shit?
Yeah.
No, what happened?
Right. The McCaskies have admitted publicly, we don't know anything about football.
Yeah.
Yet they still make the decisions.
Yeah. Daddy left us the team, and now what do we do?
Yeah. It's not actually Daddy left. Virginia actually knows what she's doing. Actually,
that's true, but
I don't know if Virginia actually knows what she's doing anymore. No, she's not. She gave it to her son to run into the ground.
Yeah.
And it kind of that kind of happens all the time. Like you get these kids that grow up in these I guess you could say very well off families.
Yeah.
And they have never had to scrape 2 dimes together to cause heat to warm up their apartment building,
Right.
or you know what I mean? And they don't know what it takes to fail, or anything they've ever failed at, they've been allowed to walk away or throw
Buy
money
themselves
at.
out of.
Yeah. And now when they're in a situation where they're making decisions, they're just, they don't have that, I don't know, that gravitas, that thing that made the original owner, like George Hallis, grind, and he knew what he wanted, and they don't have that. They've always had, white tablecloths for dinner and stuff like that. They've never experienced that. So when they get into a CEO situation, they don't know what the fuck to do. They didn't grow up on Hard Knocks. They grew up on, silver spoons. So it's interesting. But yes, I agree. The entire Bears organization should sell. Actually, they should sell to hopefully a future rich fan that wants to make it, what they should be, and what they are in their heads versus what they really are. Anyway, I was gonna go. Oh, what I always thought was kind of weird now, or actually what's happening weird, because you were talking about you're paying attention more now because they're more of in our peer group.
A little bit.
It's odd that the people I watched in the 90s are now head coaches. And you're like,
oh, sure.
I remember watching
players
play.
Yeah.
And now you're a head coach.
Yeah.
Like Jim Harbaugh, or who's a guy that Mike Vrabel from the Tennessee Titans. Like those guys I watched play linebacker, and I watched Jim Harbaugh play quarterback, and now they're head coaches, and you're like, shit, wow.
And you know what? Along that lines, I was kind of surprised that like Brett Favre never got picked up to be a coach somewhere, or he would never really went that route. I mean, he was coaching like a high school team. Like
I don't think he wants to.
Well, that's just it. But I thought, man, I mean, if you're looking for a quarterback coach,
he'd be pretty good.
Wouldn't you pick those kind of guys? And you're right. Maybe they just don't feel like.
But I've heard a rumor, or not a rumor. There is a saying that people that are that good, maybe they're not the best coaches. Like just because they, instead of like, don't do it like that, do it how I did it. Well, how'd you do it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just freaking did it.
Well, and that's true, because Brett Favre had some ugly form and stuff like that for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it's not his fault. If you ever hear his story, he ran an option football team, and they didn't have 7-on-7 drills in the off season. So he never knew how to throw.
Yeah.
So he went to a college, and he was learning as he went. He learned in Green Bay. So, anyway, not what we're talking about today. We kind of went off on our little tangent like we always do. You want to move on to number 2 on our list?
Sure, we can.
Cool. We're going to talk about top 5 werewolf movies on our list. It's something that the Greg and I, we love werewolf movies.
Yep. And it kind of came up. I mean, somebody had posted on Twitter, like, name your top 5. And I was going through the comments. I'm like, man, it's a pretty diversified list. I mean, as far as, I think you can count on a couple movies, or at least one movie being in there, and we'll probably have it comment on our list. But I just got a kick out of it. I said, hey, check this out. And I sent it over to you. You're like, okay, we're going to talk about that on Sunday. I'm like,
because
okay.
There was one that I kept seeing, and everybody's top 5 was A Company of Wolves. I don't think I've ever seen it, which shocks me. Yeah. So I might have to look that up this coming up week and see if I like to see it, because I don't remember it. If I did see it,
I want to say it was early 80s.
I actually remember the poster. I just don't remember the movie, believe it or not, because the poster is pretty wicked. It's like the wolf coming, the guy's like screaming, and the wolf is literally coming out of his mouth. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It was, and the box cover, I remember being at my local video store.
Yeah,
and thinking, oh, I should watch that film. And then I think one time before I was probably middle school.
Yeah,
and I tried to rent it, and the guy at the video store was like, nobody.
No,
not
do that.
Not for you. Your mom would be very upset with me. 1985 that came out.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to go through mine first. You let me know when you're ready for yours.
Okay.
The first one, number one, just because without this one, there isn't werewolf movies. The 1941 The Wolfman with Lon Chaney.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, that's number one. It will be number one because that's the first movie I ever watched where there was a wolfman, and it captivated me ever since to go on to other movies. Anytime there's a werewolf in a movie, I'm like, yes, I'm there.
Yeah.
Number two for me would be American Werewolf in London.
Yep.
You can't like that. That is a, how do you say this, Greg? That's a Mount Rushmore of werewolf movies. Like that one's up there. That was very well done. The transformation at that time period where now everything's digital, but back then they had too. Yeah, and you're right, it absolutely holds up, and it looks painful still. It looks like that's the one time I actually watched the movie and thought, oh, I don't think I want to be a werewolf, because I always thought it'd be cool to be a werewolf. You change, you get strong, you get powerful, and you're like, no, maybe. Yeah, and now I was like, oh no, that looks really painful. So that was fantastic. I believe that was directed by John Landis, and how he played like Blue Moon as he was getting transformed.
Yeah, it was John Landis and I want to say Rick Baker did the special effects.
And if you ever look it up on YouTube, guys, if you're ever into this type of stuff where Rick Baker talks about just some of the things that they did behind the scenes to make that. And in fact, I remember one real clear was when they had the whiskers growing.
Yep.
And that's actually reversed. They actually pulled the whisker through the skin or something like that.
Yep. So that was 1981. Yeah. And the special effects departments, they were literally making stuff up as they went along.
Yeah, you're right.
And that is it was inventive. The stuff that they did in that film was used in special effects, not even for horror films, just in general for years to go.
Yes. Yeah, they set the standard. That was the cowboy guerrilla days of special effects. So that was really cool. The last thing I can remember about that movie, American Werewolf in London, I can't think of another time where it's two buddies walking in the middle of the night and hearing that howl and being so scared for those guys.
Yeah.
That was truly terrifying. You still watch it, you get chills.
Oh yeah, and it's got a bit of comedy to it too, which was unexpected. I think the first time I watched it, which was probably as a teenager, I didn't see as much of the comedy coming, and then as I got to know who John Landis was, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. So that was it's a good movie. And it's
number three. Number three, I've talked about this since anytime we talk about werewolf movies, is the Howling. That was the first movie that scared me to where I was afraid in the dark. I was afraid in the day, because that was the first time I was introduced to the idea that a werewolf can transform whenever it wants to transform.
Mm-hmm.
And that freaked me out, the idea of that. And that movie scared me, and that doesn't hold up now. When I watch it now, I'm like, oh God, I was scared of this. The transformation scene is one of the top two. I think it's and American Werewolf in London. So the Howling, definitely. All the other sequels were kind of bullshit after that, but
it went downhill quick.
Yeah, really fast. Actually, I think the second one's called Howling 2: My Sister's a Werewolf, and it's really bad.
And I remember it was one of those late night HBO or Cinemax kind of films. By the time they got to Howling 4.
Yes.
Because I think that was actually the first Howling I ever watched. I was like, boobies and werewolves? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then they were in Australia, and the werewolves are marsupials. And I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But
yes. I remember that. Actually, that's Halloween 3. That's the Halloween 3. I remember it because they caught. Okay. Yeah, they caught the whole basis was the Australia, and they caught a werewolf on film one year and something like that. Yeah. Number 4 for me was Silver Bullet, Stephen King's classic. I thought that was great.
1985.
Yeah, the idea of the little boy in the wheelchair and the uncle who's the only one that believes him, and
Nick Nolte played the uncle too.
Yeah,
and you're like, wow.
But no, it was a really good mystery for a hot minute, because you didn't know who the werewolf was, and that was to me, I'm sure they've done it before, but to me, that was the first mystery werewolf, the whodunit werewolf that I viewed. So I thought that was very well done. The 80s had a lot of Stephen King movies that were good, and then the 90s got really weird.
Well, a lot like a Stephen King book, he had trouble writing an ending for a long time.
Yeah, but that was a good ending one.
It was. I mean, Silver, like his early stuff, Cujo, Christine, Silver Bullet. I mean, those ended up being okay. I mean, Christine was a little out there, but like Carrie. I mean, that's a Stephen King one, I think. So
and last but not least is one that a lot of people don't know of, and I kind of came across it by not by mistake, but just happenstance one time. Is called Bad Moon. Where this brother,
Bad Moon.
Where this brother comes from some, I don't know, excursion, some jungle excursion. He was a doctor, or he was a professor or something like that, and he was doing research out there, and he got attacked by a werewolf, and he comes to live with his sister. And what's great about this one is there's this German Shepherd that belongs with the sister and the little boy in the family, and it's basically the German Shepherd versus his brother-in-law, because they're like, he senses he's a werewolf, and there's this very like it's almost like Lassie meets a werewolf, but it was done really well. It wasn't cheap, or it was done very well. And so those are my top 5. Now look, I love werewolf movies, so I do have a top 10, but this is just top 5.
Yeah, I had a hard time. I actually just watched one. It was one of those, like, it was called Wolfen.
Oh, okay.
Stars, it's stars a kid. He's the new MacGyver. He's the main character. That actor.
Oh no. Okay, I'm sorry. This is a different Wolfen. I'm sorry. Okay.
I think it's called Wolfen.
There's a Wolfen in 1983.
Yeah, this is different.
Okay.
And it is. So he's the good guy. He's a high school football player, discovers he's a descended, full-blooded werewolf.
I actually like this one. Yeah.
And then he, like, I believe he kills somebody, maybe his parents. I don't know. Or maybe, he thinks he kills his parents. That's what it is. So he goes on the run. He's like, just like out on the lam, whatever. And he ends up, it's almost like Roadhouse. He ends up like living at this farm, being like a farmhand. And then the bad guy is played by Aquaman.
Momoa,
Jason Momoa. Yeah. And their werewolf forms are like gorilla suits. I mean, you look at them, you're like, okay, well, it's practical effects, and
it's something you would actually expect from sci-fi, but it would probably be I think it was an entertaining movie.
Yeah, I watched it on Amazon Prime, and it was entertaining enough.
Oh, it's called
Wolves. That's what
it's called. Wolves. Okay.
And it was entertaining enough
to keep your attention.
That you just watch the whole thing, and then when you're done, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like a weird
small little twist, but okay.
Weird, almost like superhero-y werewolf kind of film, but all right.
Yeah.
But my top 5 for films, and a couple of them you had on yours as well. But first one up was called Ginger Snaps. It's
Did you like that one?
I did like the film.
Yeah. Okay.
The Ginger Snaps ran for 2 films, and the first one is about these sisters that are like, I mean, it's 2000, almost like indie film style werewolf film. And most of the film is this girl's just kind of descent, and you're like, they're 2 sisters that are both incarcerated in a mental institution. So then you're wondering, is this them just going crazy, or is one of them actually a werewolf? And and you're not really sure through most of the film. So I thought that was a good movie. They actually came out with a sequel, Ginger Snaps 2, that takes it back to like the Dark Ages. And there's no mystery involved. It's just, she's a werewolf in the Dark Ages. Got it.
Okay.
But I liked both those films. The next one up was the same as yours, Silver Bullet, 85. I mean, and again, what I liked about that film is that the way they shot it, you saw parts of the world. You never got a full on shot. I mean, because eventually then when you do, you're like, that looks like a man in a girl suit. But but just the way they filmed it, you're like, wow, I mean, especially as a kid, it was scary. Like when they're on that covered bridge and he's trying to light the bottle rocket. I mean, that was intense.
Yes, it was intense.
Next up for number 3 for me is one that often gets panned. It is Wolf with Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
And Ultron.
James Spader.
James Spader. James Spader.
Yeah.
And Michelle Pfeiffer. So
That's
94. Right. So special effects are a little bit better. Jack Nicholson is just chewing up scenery.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm doing this.
He had fun with it. You could tell. He had so much fun with that movie.
He is literally Jack Nicholson playing Jack Nicholson playing a werewolf.
Werewolf, yeah.
And it is just him like, I'm collecting a paycheck. And just but it's entertaining. I liked it.
Yes, I agree.
Number 2 for me is one that a lot of people haven't heard of. It's a British one, came out in 2002 called Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
That's really solid group of British commandos, special forces types. And they end up in this stranded house and they're trying to defend themselves against a you don't know what.
Yeah.
Ended up being a really great movie in my opinion. And then number 1 for me was American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
I do have some honorable mentions.
Yeah, go for it, please.
That are in the TV category.
Oh.
So TV shows.
Are you going to talk about my?
Really hard to do a werewolf show on television as a weekly serial kind of thing. And they did make an attempt back in the 80s. And it was just called Werewolf. That's all it was. One of the first Fox station shows as a TV show. And it was the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
As a werewolf. I mean,
Eric Cord.
Yep. And he was a werewolf and he didn't know what to do, but he would go from town to town just trying to find a cure for his lycanthropy. And he would be in this town, like land in a town, like when the full moon was there. And it was just one of those like, dude, why don't you go in the woods during the full? But no, you're always in a town and you're helping some poor
or just right out of a storage facility for that.
Yeah, really.
That day.
But there's always some, widowed single mother who's in with the mob or, why this town of 3,000 people has a mob. We're not sure, but, and it was him then he'd wolf out and there was a reporter that was chasing him. And then there was a werewolf hunter that was chasing him. And it was just, does it hold up? You can find the whole thing on YouTube.
Yes, you can
literally watch the whole thing.
Yes, you can.
And it holds up when you keep in your mind that this was a 1980s beginning of Fox kind of thing. So you kind of went off a little bit off of it.
You don't remember it. I was a diehard fan of this.
Oh, really? What am
I loved it. So I think he's a future med student, right? And his roommate says, hey man, I need you to come over because I need to talk to you. Or old roommate. He comes over there and his friend is like, look, tonight you're going to have to kill me because I'm going to change. He goes, you're going to tie me up and all this stuff. Anyway, so his friend is going through the entire thing of how this guy bit him and how he's been trying to find him because if you kill the one that bit you, you stop the bloodline, you release your curse. That's the main. That's right. That's the important part. So his friend ends up turning into a werewolf. He's so shocked. He fumbles with the gun and he gets attacked and then he finally kills his friend. So now he's accused of murdering his best friend. He has to go on the run and he's going town to town because he's following the trail of Scorzini, who is the vampire, played by Chuck Connors, who in my opinion was the scariest bad guy to date. I mean, it was I'm sorry. He was the scariest. Yeah, no, he was the scariest. Did I say vampire?
Yeah.
He was a werewolf. He was the scariest werewolf bad guy at that time period on TV, if that makes sense. I thought he was so scary. He had
the eye patch, right?
He had the eye patch, and we removed the eye patch. It was just a wolf eye. It was just a wolf eye there. It wasn't a human eye. And so that's what that show was entirely about. It was him tracking down Scorzini so that he could kill him, so he could lift the curse. And yes, you're right. I don't remember a reporter, but I definitely remember a bounty hunter going after him.
thought there was a reporter eventually as well, but I could have been wrong.
Yeah, who knows? But anyway,
maybe I am mixing that up with the
honorable mention. That was
for that, and I got one more actually for honorable mention, and this is it's the British series, not the American remake, but the British series of Being Human was the name of it, and the whole thing surrounded around a werewolf, a vampire, and a ghost are roommates, like in this flat in London. And they're just trying to like live as normal a life as they can, but they're all
things get complicated.
Yeah, but they're all supernatural creatures, and like the vampires have a society, and there's that whole piece to it. And the werewolves kind of do, but this one's a little bit of a loner. He's like, is he trying to be vegan? I can't remember. But I mean, it was about relationships, and then all of a sudden, at like the snap of a finger, you're like, oh shit, these are supernatural creatures that like to kill things.
Yeah, and it wasn't a comedy or anything like that, guys.
No, I mean,
there were serious, like they handled it serious. It was all
well, there were parts of it that were comedic, but at the same time, like you watch a hospital drama, and there's pieces of that are comedic at times.
Yes.
So I thought that was good, and the transformations were good. The werewolves look good. As far as it being a BB, I don't know, I think it was BBC. I could have been wrong, but for it being like a British-made sci-fi series in the 90s, it was fun. I liked it. So
they do really well though. British TV, like with sci-fi series. I think they're pretty good at it.
They are. When you realize how much of the series that we watch that are actually
from
British series that they're just remaking in America, like the whole Office thing. And you're like,
the whole Office. Yep.
So,
I'm gonna do an honorable mention, and it got my curiosity for 2 seasons, and after that, I was like, all right, I'm done. I don't even know what's going on. Teen Wolf, MTV's version of it.
Yeah. We watched the whole thing.
Did you? Okay.
And yes, there were definitely seasons where you're like, oh, this is getting old. You guys got to figure something out.
Yeah.
And even the last seasons, like you could tell the actors like had like the contracts were ending. They wanted to move on to do other things.
Yes.
And you really got to see like who was the real talent on the show. Like as far as acting goes,
Styles was the man.
Yes. Yep. He was very much the lead actor that everybody was more into as
his stories. Yeah.
As opposed to even the main character.
I agree.
So
definitely. Isn't the guy that plays Superman now, wasn't he like
yeah, he was Derek.
He was in there. Yeah.
He was
That's right.
I don't want to say cousin Derek, but he was Derek, one of the werewolves. And you know what? Killed it in that role. He did really well.
Yeah. So anybody putting on the list there of what their favorite werewolf movies
pretty
are?
Quiet. We got some watchers out there, but if
but nobody's typing in.
Yeah, some of the people that are on here, I don't know if they're really
werewolf people,
kind of folks, but
not even the 1941. Come on, that was awesome.
Well, you know what? I think you can expect to see more classic Universal Monster stuff happening, because right now Universal theme parks is creating what they call
their Monsterverse.
It's epic. It's not Epic Land. Maybe it's Epic Island or Epic.
Well,
what they're calling their Epic theme park, and it's going to be like kind of like the Magic Kingdom, where it's split up in different parks, and they've got a Nintendo park. They're going to have what are they going to have? Oh, like a How to Train Your Dragon park. Yeah. But one of the parks they're doing is sections is Universal Monsters, where they're going to have all the shops, all the rides are going to be
awesome. I'm going to have to go to that. I grew up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. They're just like, they're doing landscaping in terms of like land clearing, and they got the retention bonds built. They got the power plant built. And they're going to start to figure that out. Ooh, cool. Okay. Cousin Carla is listening to us tonight. Welcome. Right. She says Underworld is one of her favorites. And I do like Underworld as a series. Their werewolves, for me, though, were a little disappointing.
I agree. They weren't werewolves to me. They were like mutated puppies.
Yeah. I mean, like the skinless or like the hairless style, except for the film that was set in the Dark Ages. Where
is that the one where they actually show how the revolt happened?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, yes. That one. They had some cool looking like CGI werewolves in there, but the practical effect ones.
Or who's the brother? there was the giant vampire, and then there's part 2, the giant vampire, and then the brother that never changed, and he was a white wolf. He was a badass.
That was cool. I like those designs, but the Lycan design that they came up with, I was like, I would have done that differently. But
yeah, me too. But yeah, no,
and I'll still watch the movie. I really
me too. Oh yeah, I think they're great. I think they're great movies. Actually, I think they're fun. That's kind of what they're supposed to be. Hey, what do you think's the best werewolf fight you've ever seen on the film? Best werewolf fight. Unless you can help me out. The only one I got is Anthony Hopkins versus
Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
No.
Oh, Anthony. Wolf. Yeah.
Yeah.
The remake of the Wolf.
No, the Wolfman. Yeah, the Wolfman. The remake of it. Who's the guy?
Benicio del Toro.
Thank you. That's the only werewolf versus werewolf that I remember where it was good. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is good. I actually like that movie. Yeah, I'm very few people like that.
I watch it every Halloween.
Okay.
I do. Yeah. It honestly, it takes some liberties with the story, but I don't care. I mean,
dude, my favorite part of that was when I think he's changing for the first time or something, and they have this guy in a big beard. He looks like he's a badass, and he's ready to hold up a gun, and all of a sudden, boom, he just gets knocked right out of the frame by how fast that werewolf and how much force he had. I think that was awesome how that was played.
And I like the when Lawrence is in the asylum.
Yes,
and he transforms in front of all those doctors in the asylum. Yes. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, I think
that's early CGI. And part of what that film suffered from was when they were really starting to come up with a lot of like, we're going to do 3D in films, and so they retrofitted that film to be a 3D film. And
what do you mean retrofitted?
It's like it wasn't filmed in 3D.
Oh, but then
they said, we're going to delay this by a couple months. And so they delayed it a couple months. Oh. And like some of the scenes where like, I think there's one scene where some candles or like a candelabra gets like swiped off a table. And so they made it so like, ooh, it's going to like come at you. And I'm like, that's really not what we want to do with 3D in film. And it was early enough that I'm like, if this is what 3D films are going to end up being, I'm not in for it.
It just feels like no one's ever really figured that out.
The only film I really watched, and this is a tangent, folks, but the only film I really watched that I thought did 3D really well was Avatar. Yeah, because they went in, the cinematographer said, this is how we're going to set up these shots because we know it's 3D. We know it's IMAX. We know it's whatever format we're going for.
Right.
And then they set up the shots accordingly. So all those computer screens like just kind of jumped out at you, or the foliage in the background would jump out at certain points, and it just melded with the film and brought you into the experience of the film. It wasn't a gimmick. It was just, this is how we're making this.
Yes, I remember when they did Jaws 3D, and they had actually 3 3D spots, and that was it. It was a syringe, and then it was the shark coming at the end.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was I don't forget
something in those tubes, right? Something in those underwater tubes.
Yes.
Where people were walking.
Yes. Yeah.
And
then after that, but you're right. Avatar did it well because the entire movie was like they had the floating islands coming out, and they did that very well. Where that was part of the movie. It wasn't hey, this shot's 3D, the rest of the shot's a movie.
No, every shot had a 3D element.
Yeah.
And whether you recognized it as a 3D element or not, or just part of the movie.
Yeah.
And that was really good. Like,
I agree.
Even later on, I think we watched one of the Hobbit films in 3D, and I'm like, this is dumb. Like they're not doing it well at all. So so that, and you know what? They don't really do them anymore. Like
you're right. They don't.
You're not seeing stuff also in 3D. I mean, you just don't.
Wasn't there a time you could buy? I think I actually owned a TV where a TV, if you hit where these glasses, you hit the glasses, everything's 3D.
Yep.
Or things that were supposed to be 3D became 3D.
And they were saying like it was going to be the new thing in the future was 3D movies. They were going to make video games that incorporated 3D. And
speaking of 3D, and that was the wave of the future. And this is going off of a tangent. To this weekend, we went to a birthday party, and they had an arcade there, and they had like the Oculus, like you put on. And I played a Star Wars one. And I almost broke the thing above me because Vader would throw things at me. And because I'm a big guy and I'm tall, I went to block it with my lightsaber, and it would hit the thing, and I kept
yeah.
hearing kind of outside of of my zone. I kept hearing, step back, please.
Yeah.
And then I did that one with the those glowing boxes that come and you have lightsabers and you're hitting
Beat
them
Saber.
Beat Saber.
Beat Saber.
Yeah. Those were extremely fun, and I had no idea. But when you put that on, you're in that world. It's really hard to know where you're at.
Yep.
So all these short videos you see on YouTube and Instagram, when people are falling into their TVs or they're they're hitting somebody, I can totally understand how that's happening now. I can totally see it.
Videos of people that are playing like a scary game.
Yeah.
And they're going one, they go, and then they run the other way and they run into a wall.
And they run
running in the TV or something.
But I can see how that happens now, because I thought to myself when I would see those without experiencing it, I thought, how the hell did you run into your wall? You knew it was there.
Someone had given us an early Oculus where literally you just like clipped your phone into the visor. Okay. I was playing, it was just like a space exploration game. Like you're in a space station and wherever you looked, it had a cursor in it and it would just follow and that would be the direction you go. But I was running in my couch, and I thought, I'll just stand in the middle of my living room.
Yes.
Because you don't need to really move. You're just like rotating and looking around. Right. And at one point I'm like, thunk. Oh, that's my couch. I have moved 3 feet in one direction, just unknowingly.
Yes. Very easy to do. But I safely, people, do it. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I might save up money and do Oculus and clear out my entire basement.
Well, let me know if you do. I'll come down and give it a shot.
All right. Sounds good.
So,
So we're back to werewolves.
Well, we're going to shift over. A little bit. First, I want to apologize that I'm looking at my camera now and you guys have been seeing me with Kleenex the whole time. And I'm still recovering from the vid. So a little bit of congestion and draining and stuff like that. But
we can't see anything you're saying.
Yes, you can.
Nope. You see it. We don't.
Why not?
Trust me. Because when we're recording, because we're on Zoom, it kind of cuts down the feed. So anything you think, we're not seeing everything that you think.
Well, if you see my face covered in a Kleenex, that's why. So anyway, so we did our top 10 movies of 2021, and I kind of started thinking, I'm like, well, I watch a lot of TV. Like after my kids go to bed, that's like my time to get some shows in. And
you actually tell people how long you watch TV at night. I'm blown away by it. In fact, I've lectured before Greg on this.
It's an unhealthy amount.
Yes.
And not
but unhealthy. There's a good reason though. It's like you're spending time. Yeah.
So I mean, my kids go to bed. My wife, she likes to just like go outside and read a book. And so she's outside reading it. Even now. Yep. Even now.
No shit.
Yep. She'll bundle up and go sit under the sky and
read a book.
And she's got like her Kindle or on her phone. So it's backlit so she can read it. But yeah, she'll do that. And she's watching meteor showers and stuff like that. I think she's nuts, especially this time of year. And actually this time of year, sometimes she'll just go sit in the garage and like open up the garage door so she can look out. So she's out of the wind and stuff. But
I am shocked. There is no way you could, and I'll little clue to Audible, our little cue to Audible here. I'm actually starting to really listen to a lot of movies over tape.
Yeah.
I have to catch up because we have some interviews coming up that I have to catch up on stuff. So it's a lot easier as I'm driving to listen to it versus reading it. I couldn't imagine sitting out there, even in the garage with the door up in this weather right now. Good for her. I couldn't do that.
Yeah. It's her time. So when she's doing that, I'm doing some nerdy thing. Like I'm either playing video games or I'm prepping
on a podcast.
I'm on a podcast or I'm prepping for Dungeons and Dragons night. I mean, there's any number of things that are too nerdy for me to do with my wife. I'm doing them then.
Right.
And so, and she's out there for sometimes it's at least an hour, sometimes 2, depending on how into the book she is.
Yeah.
So now we're talking like it's 11:30, almost 12. And she comes in and the smart man in me would say, I'm going to bed now because I've got work in the morning, but I'm not a smart man. So I'm like, if I'm going to spend any kind of time with my wife, if we're going to hang out and we both love watching different types of TV shows, that's our time. So So we're doing she's giving me a look right now like, what are you talking about? So that's our time. I mean, and we watch an episode or two or something, and then we go to bed. So that's why.
So he goes to bed, folks, at like 2 a.m. If he's a good boy, he goes to bed at 2 a.m. Now, look, I love the Greg. All right, he's a brother. So I get very passionate about, look, man, we're not getting any younger. You need your freaking sleep. You need to go to sleep. You need to recover. You need to come like refreshed, ready to go. I'm a big believer in recovery, and I put a lot of time and effort into sleeping, and tracking sleep and all that fun stuff. So I get on Greg when I hear he goes to bed at like 2 a.m. every night.
There is more than one night a week where I'm good for like one episode of something, and then during the second show, I'm like, okay, we'll do one more.
Yeah,
and I'm out on the couch. So I do get a little.
Hey, do you have a rule? When you fall asleep, like watching TV, and you fall asleep on the couch, do you expect them to wake, like, do you expect Krista to wake you up and take you upstairs, or does she just let you hang out there and you'll eventually wake up? And
oh no, when it's time for bed, she's like, okay, let's go to bed, or she'll just wake me up and say, why don't you go to bed? Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I have a rule that if I look comfortable,
just leave me alone.
You nudge me once and I don't respond, go. Like, don't disturb the sleep. Go. So
no, he'll wake me up.
Well, I mean, to each his own. I'm just saying.
Send me to bed. But
didn't know if I was the only one that did that.
Anyway, so I came up with a top 20 because there's so many shows out there I couldn't get it down to a top 10. I mean, it just was possible. So some of these, a lot of people have watched. I don't know if Johnny has watched, but
no, I realized very quickly I haven't watched
nearly
after I looked at this list.
So here we kind of go. 20 on my list is an Apple TV series called For All Mankind, and you would really like it. So it's 1969, and the space program is in full swing. Right, it's the Russians versus the Americans, and on this show, they're saying, "What if the Russians beat us in the space race?"
Okay,
so we know in our world they got the first satellite up. They got Sputnik. Okay, but then after that, we took the lead and we got the first man into space. We did we get the first man, or was Yuri Gagarin the first one? Okay, we landed on the moon first.
Wait a minute. I think that's yes. I think you're right. The first spaceman was
Russian, like
right. But we landed on the moon. We're the first to land on the moon.
So,
so in this world,
that didn't happen. I mean, the Russians were beating us consistently, but it changed some things. Like, we weren't then satisfied with getting the first man on the moon. We wanted to get the first woman on the moon. Okay. And so there were female astronauts a lot sooner. And it's kind of the whole, well,
you do this, we'll do this.
Yeah. How technology changed. And then also on the moon, very early on, because we couldn't land in the Sea of Tranquility where the Russians already landed. We had to land somewhere else. Well, where we landed, we found ice. And so now we could colonize the moon. And how did that? So lots of things. And there's a lot of drama involved between the different astronauts and stuff like that. But pretty good film. And they're in, I think, season 3 right now.
Okay.
And that's on Apple TV. So that's really good.
All right. That's funny.
Next one up, Resident Alien.
Yeah.
With Alan Tudyk. Alan Tudyk, if you don't know who he is, most people really got to know him on Firefly, where he played the pilot, Wash. But then he's also, he's the voice of the chicken in Moana. He's the voice of the mayor of.
If you want to call that a voice, yeah.
It is. You can watch.
He made sounds.
But he made a really convincing chicken sounds. And it was like, the directors were like, we were surprised at how much emotion and character he put into just making chicken sounds. But he's a constant in a lot of Disney animation now, and he's a constant in a lot of voice acting now, but he's also a really good actor. And so the entire series is based on an alien who crash landed on Earth, has taken over the body of a local doctor because he needed a body to inhabit. and he's trying to fix a ship, but then he's also trying to blend in to Earth culture. It's
okay.
sci-fi comedy.
Did he kill the doctor?
Yes.
By inhabiting him? Okay.
Yes. So nothing against killing humans at first, but then he's like, oh, okay.
And when you need a body.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's one kid that can see through his disguise, like this middle school kid. So he's like, I must find ways to kill him. And so he's trying to devise, like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And the kid's like, it's an alien, I'm telling you. So that's funny. Next up is a Netflix series called Shadow and Bone.
Didn't think I would like this, but I ended up really liking it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a very long series. There's only one season out right now. 2 is coming soon. Different kind of world that's separated between these kind of 2 ruling bodies. There's like this supernatural wall that they can try to travel through. Excuse me, but it's an undertaking to try to travel through this wall, and like, why is it there and everything else, and there's different social classes involved. But a very good show. Did you see the next one, Starstruck?
I have not. No.
It's on HBO Max. I believe it's more on the Max side of things.
Okay.
But it's a London-based show where you have this. They treat her as to be like this, like they want her to look frumpy, but she's not. I mean, she's just like an average woman. She's not like Sandra Bullock skinny or like glamorous or anything like that. She's just a very, run-of-the-mill woman. I find her very attractive, but so she's in London trying to get her life together, and she actually rolls across this like international acting superstar.
Okay.
And they kind of go out on a weird date, and they really like each other. And the whole series takes place over a year. It's broken up into like seasons. And they just kind of keep missing the mark on each other for a while. Like,
okay. Yeah.
Like they have a great,
it's a love story.
Yeah, it's a romantic comedy.
Okay.
But they have a great chemistry. But then after a while, it's like when they meet, they're both single. And then he's like, well, I got to go away and do this movie thing. And she's like, oh, okay. And then when he comes back, he thinks she's taken. She thinks he's taken. Blah, 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 blah. But they still have these really great chemistry. And the chemistry between the 2 actors is very good.
So it makes you sit there and go, oh, damn it.
Yeah. It's a lot of romantic tension.
The minute they get together, it's over.
Very well. And it's like, this is going to be it. This is going to happen. And then one of them just screws it up and they end up fighting. You're like, why would you do that? But, good.
That's the key to those movies. That's the key to those shows.
Yep. Keep that romantic tension.
Keep them apart. And no. That's what killed Moonlighting. Remember Moonlighting? Bruce.
Yeah,
Willis?
they got together and then
they got together and nobody gave a shit anymore about the show.
Yeah, like, nope.
It was done.
Let him go be an action star now. We don't care. 16 is a show called Mythic Quest, also on Apple TV and in its 3rd season. It gives you kind of a backstage look at video game design in terms of like a World of Warcraft knockoff. They don't use World of Warcraft itself, but it's definitely in that vein.
Is it called Mystic Quest?
It's called Mythic Quest, yes.
Okay.
And it's powerful, and it's like women in gaming. How are they represented? How do these video games even function and make money and run as a business? Yeah. And then you've got this like over the top personality game creator who does crazy stuff, and they have to kind of try to rein them in. So,
okay,
good show. I like it. Very funny. They had a very pointed COVID lockdown episode that was fantastic.
Okay.
It's funny, and then they just bring in the drama real hard, and you're like, oh. So it was good. 15 WandaVision, Marvel-based show on Disney Plus. It was tough because everybody, I'm sure, thinks that this would automatically be in my top 10. But it was a very run-of-the-mill show, I think, in terms of the competition it had to deal with. I
think it also suffered from a lot of overhype, because it was the first Marvel project we got after the lockdown.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah.
The next one was a surprise for me, another HBO Max series called The White Lotus. It is a resort in Hawaii, and just everybody goes there for their different reasons, like family vacation, couples retreat. One woman is there to spread her mother's ashes. And then kind of the hijinks that happen. Like there's one couple there on a honeymoon, and the groom is so concerned with making it so perfect for his wife that he ends up like completely ignoring her and just complaining to management the whole time.
Interesting.
And then you can see their marriage is like, oh, this isn't good. He's like a controlling, psychotic person. And then like his mother shows up on their honeymoon, and you're like, oh, that can't be good.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was a good series. I liked it a lot. Next up, another shocker for me, Dr. Death.
Yeah, you really liked it. You really talked about it. Yeah.
Well, it's based on a true story.
Right.
And it is on Peacock, which is the NBC streaming service. Stars Joshua Jackson, Pacey, for those of you who don't know who he is from Dawson's Creek. But he plays a guy named Christopher Dutch. And this is a real guy. You can go look him up. In fact, they released this side by side with a documentary of the real story. He was a doctor, like a board certified doctor.
Yeah.
And his surgeries were atrocious. They're like, here's a guy who's fully licensed, but he gets into the surgical room and it's like, he doesn't know what he's doing. And he is outright killing people, crippling people, like causing permanent damage.
Did they ever get to the point of, was he doing it because he was incompetent? Was he doing it because was he doing it because he's just sadistic and
well,
hurt
and that was the trial. That was
okay.
So he gets investigated by two other doctors played by Alec Baldwin and Christian Slater. And whether you like them or not, doesn't matter. They're good in this show. So they investigate him and spur like this investigation to be done by the like legal bodies of the states that this guy functioned in. And so when he went to trial, the defense was, well, he's not malicious. He's just poorly trained. Like he's not he something happened in his training, and that's why he's screwing up left and right.
Yeah.
And they're saying, no, he's doing this on purpose. Like there are people in the room that are like, no, doctor, you shouldn't do that. No, doctor, you're like, and he is so narcissistic and so like that type A, I can never be wrong, that he just bowls over anybody and does these surgeries. Meanwhile, he's also a research physician where he's doing like groundbreaking research in the medical field for spinal injuries, which is actually being successful. And so you've got this dichotomy of like, do they pull him? Because like he could eventually figure out how to reattach a spine and have there be no more like accidental quadriplegics, paraplegics, anything like that. Like that's where he was headed, looking at like cell regeneration and stuff like that. And you guys can look up the actual court case to see what he was, whether he was found guilty or not. But the show was fantastic. Okay. And Joshua Jackson did a really good job. Like, I think he should be up for awards.
Okay.
12
Number
is
12.
Only Murderers in the Building. Came out on Hulu. And it's Steve Martin Short, who are fantastic. Selena Gomez, who shocked me. Like, if you were to say, hey, Selena Gomez is a really good actress, I'd go, shut up. No, she's not. But really, she was. I mean, it fit the role really well. You could see where she has grown up a lot, and just become a decent actor in her own right. And watching the three of them play off each other is fantastic.
Okay. The next one, I'm kind of shocked you watched it.
The Great. It is the sometimes true story of Catherine the Great of Russia and her taking over her husband's throne. I just kind of got sucked into it, and the ridiculousness of it. Like, you're watching it going, there's no way that's historically correct. And you know what? You're right, but they don't claim to be historically correct the whole time.
Okay. Okay.
So I kind of got into that.
All right.
So the top 10, And this was very tough for me to try to get these in an order that I was happy with.
Okay.
So 10 is Arcane, the Netflix
Awesome.
series, animated series based in the world of League of Legends. It's a massive multiplayer online video game that I have never even seen before.
Right.
So I didn't touch it.
I'm trying to think if it is awesome or not. Like if you really
take the time to, or the
series. I don't know if I was just blown away by the world and the animation to really ask myself, okay, was this a good story? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, I can look at
that's all. I'm thinking that in my head right now.
Right. Not to disparage you at all, but I think I can look at animated stuff a little bit differently.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I've been doing animated shows for a long time, like adult-based animated shows,
Yes.
Anime series that
I know football, anime.
Yeah.
Animation.
Things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So again, this is not for your 7-year-old. I wouldn't put that out there at all. This is more like PG-13 and above for sure. But I really enjoyed the story, kind of the class system that they set up, how the world is working. It's a world where technology is huge, but magic also exists. And how can they coexist? And how can they hinder each other? How can they help each other? And then there's a very big, like, here's the aristocracy, and then here's like the underworld power. And how are they vying for actual control from top to bottom? And I thought that was very good. Looking forward to season 2.
Me too.
9, What We Do in the Shadows. Fantastic. I mean,
I love that.
It's a dark documentary. Guillermo. We had a discussion tonight of what do they think Guillermo's last name is? Guillermo
Van Helsing.
Guillermo. I mean, that's what they say is Guillermo. Yeah. Like, you think my last name is Guillermo? Yeah. So really well done, and really a lot more heart than you would expect out of it at times.
Yeah.
But really good. The acting in it is fantastic.
Yes.
Matt Berry knocks it out of the park. Gabriel Novak knocks it out of the park.
Who's the guy that's married to the girl? The vampire that's married.
That's Matt Berry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he's great.
He's fantastic.
But he just turned into I love how he says. I just love how he talks.
Yeah, well, and they have so many guest spots on there. Like, if you've been in a vampire film in the past 20 years in Hollywood,
you're on there.
They want to bring you back as your character onto the show, which is fantastic. Wesley Snipes showing up as Blade is just, it makes me laugh. Number 8, a great sci-fi series on Apple TV called Foundation, based on Isaac Asimov's novels. If you're a fan of science fiction TV, this is a must. Like, you need to search this out. It is very good. Number 7, was this a summer series or was it like spring?
This was a summer series, yes.
Invincible, another animated thing on
what a good
Amazon.
Show.
Fantastic show. Superhero based, but again, please don't let your children watch it.
Nope.
I mean, right away in the first episode, someone gets their face torn off, like literally torn off. So
I would say the last 5 minutes of episode 1, my floor dropped. Like, I was like, whoa. I text a friend and I said, hey, have you watched Invincible yet? He goes, nah, dude, I'm not going to watch. I go, do me a favor. Watch the first episode. At the end, let me know if you're going to watch it again or not. And he goes, and he responded back, holy shit, I didn't expect any of that. Right. I'm totally in on this.
So as a person that read the comics, and this is from the same creators of Walking Dead. Yeah. Now there's no zombies in here or anything like that, but knowing what they did in the Walking Dead comic, and now they're going to do a superhero book, I knew no one was safe. I knew it was going to be very like something out of left field was going to happen.
Yes.
When I read the comics, I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah. They know what they're doing. So everybody out there that's getting superhero fatigued, this is different. It's completely different.
Very different.
I would give it a chance.
If I had to put it in some kind of context that you would know, it's a Superman powered type father and his son who's coming of age, developing his own superpowers. Yeah. When I say Superman level, I just think about that power level though. don't think of like Superman being. This guy is not Superman.
Yeah, he's not.
Okay, next up is a Netflix piece called Midnight Mass.
Yep.
Oh man, this was. I did not expect this.
Really good. Really good.
Very good. I heard it was, this isolated island community. Something kind of comes up, and you're like, well, what is this something? Is it a zombie invasion? Is it vampires? There's a supernatural twist to it.
Yep.
But the way they kind of lay it out was so good.
Very good.
And it was really more, and I say this about any good zombie film, it's not about the supernatural piece. It's about the other people. It's about the survivors. It's about the relationships. And Midnight Mass is just like that. And
it's really
good. Phenomenal. So a lot of people were sleeping on this one because it came out as the same time as Squid Game.
Yeah.
And a couple other things, which I have not watched Squid Game yet, which is why it's not on this list. Because everybody said it should be in your top 10. I'm like, I haven't watched it yet. But Midnight Mass, I got right on, and it is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Number 5, HBO Max series called The Nevers. Victorian England steampunk fantasy. So
meets the X-Men. Yep.
Meets the X-Men. Yeah. I mean, there's people
really good.
People with varying types of abilities based on this kind of like weird world event that happens right away in the first episode. And just how society is dealing with it, and everything from the role of women to all this other stuff is fantastic. Oh, we got a comment from the Marshall. Loved all 3 shows in that series. Bly Manor. Oh yeah. Bly Manor, Hill House, and Midnight Mass were all done by the same people and use a lot of the same cast.
Okay.
I think out of my favorites of there, I'd say Midnight Mass is my favorite, and then I would go Hill House. But really good. Really, really good. So it went from there to the Nevers. Number 4, Loki.
Loki was awesome.
Was phenomenal. I mean, and the ripple effect it's having across the MCU right now. Really interested to see, because I mean, Loki has happened. We're getting all these films and all these other series that are like kind of centered around what happened in Loki, but we don't see anything. We're not seeing Loki. We're not seeing the other characters. We have no idea, because it's all like happening concurrently.
Yep.
So I think we're going to wait until Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness to maybe pull in some of the characters from, from Loki. So, but a fantastic piece. I was really happy to see, like, where do we
go from there?
Yeah. I mean, because Loki that we had grown to like, died in the MCU. It's like, well, how are we going to get that? How are we going to get this character like it? So really creative writing, really well done.
Yeah.
So
very well received. Mayor of Easttown. That seemed very.
Did you watch that
one? No, I didn't. I didn't watch it because I didn't want to. I have only a select amount now of watching TV, and I didn't want to get depressed. I think this is heavy.
It was super heavy.
Yeah,
this was. I started watching it because I started to hear all the buzz about Kate Winslet in her performance.
Okay. And
I was like, okay, well, let's just give it a shot. Let's watch the first episode just to see if we like it. And she plays a police detective by the name of Mare. And that's why it's Mare of Easttown. But the mystery kicks up in the first episode, and you're like, oh, well, I've got to watch the next one now.
Yeah.
And you just kind of, the way they just kind of keep it rolling. I would say probably midway through, I was like, where are they going with this? Like, what? Oh my God, what just happened? So, just really good, creative writing. But definitely a downer of a mood in the entire, just like theme and visuals and music cues. I mean, there's not a real happy point in the film or in the series. I mean, you're never uplifted.
Right.
Speaking of being never uplifted, Succession on HBO Max. Probably
my wife is really into that.
Probably one of the best series they've put out, period. I mean, following this family, the old man, played by Brian Cox, is this media mogul, like created like the old school type of news media station. So almost like a Ted Turner type.
Right. Yeah.
Super powerful in terms of broadcast, super powerful in terms of like worldwide news feeds, things like that. But they're just not adjusting well to the digital age and how things are moving, or to the world economy. But they're also like crazy, stupid rich. Like, but they're still trying to run this like multi-level, like there's, you know, there's a whole section of just cruise ships, and there's a whole section for theme parks, and there's a whole, so it would be like running a Disney or a Warner Brothers, but you're also including in like all these news stations and all these broadcast things and like radio. I mean, just they're diversified like nobody's business, and it's all resting on this one family that's running the whole thing.
Okay.
And each one of them are just so messed up, and
yeah,
none of them are good people. But you're just watching them maneuver and backstab and slide in and, you know, trying to make deals and everything else, all while they're just seeking the approval of the old man, who's not going to give it. And yeah, it's riveting TV. We started it at the beginning and watched it every week. I bet if I were to go back and just try to binge watch entire seasons, it would probably lead to a minor depression. I mean, it would just be
okay. Yeah.
Because it's that heavy. Just taking it all at once might be rough. So if you do that, just be warned.
Okay.
On the opposite end of that spectrum, then my number one of the year, Ted Lasso from Apple TV. If you haven't watched this show, oh my God, you've got to get out there.
I don't have Apple. So
it is
I have to watch
so good. It is
I've
worth.
I've heard.
I mean, first off, Apple, as far as a streaming service, is fairly cheap. Like it's not going to break the bank for you to get Apple. Kind of the, you know, some of those really heavy shows that I said were really good. Ted Lasso is like my undoing of all that, because he has such amazing positivity. The whole story.
I've watched a couple of clips on YouTube, and I can see where it gets the attention it deserves.
Yeah. Excuse me. So the entire show is based around an American football coach. He was winning in America, and for some reason, he takes a job as a soccer coach in the UK. Yeah. He knows nothing about the sport, and he brings his assistant coach with him, who has done all the studying and knows a little bit about it, but he takes over kind of like a AAA type team. Soccer, they've got these rankings of like, how do you go pro? Are you semi-pro? Right. Are you pro, but you're not pro kind of thing?
Right.
And he's just a really good coach in general. And even though he doesn't know a lot about the game, he's a good people person that he's able to pull the best out of his players. And it's just a great series. And, you know, Ted's not perfect. He's got some blind spots. He's got some soft spots that come up with an amazing amount of drama. And I mean, people on the show are winning awards left and right, and you can totally see why.
Yeah.
It's
phenomenal. Also a feel-good story.
It is. I mean, it's an underdog story in a lot of different ways, and you just root for just about everybody on the series to win. Yeah.
Okay. It's a hell of a list, man. I know I got a lot of TV to catch up on. I got to get an Apple subscription, obviously. You didn't have C in there. That wasn't that good? You didn't watch it? C?
You know what? We did watch C.
Okay.
I had a hard time figuring out where to put it in.
Okay. Like, is it good? Is it not good?
No, it is good.
Okay. Just couldn't find a place for it on your list?
It maybe yeah, I'm trying to think of where I would put it. It could have maybe replaced For All Mankind.
Okay.
Or if I would have taken out, like, I don't know. Maybe I could have taken out The Great, like reordered some things, but C would have been like 15 and under.
Okay.
It's a good series. Again, not really a shining point in there, and not a lot of positivity. It's just action, like gritty action. It's like watching The Walking Dead. Just gritty action. There's no zombies in it, but gritty, dirty people in a post-apocalyptic world just trying to make their way.
Let me ask you actually a question here, because this is the one thing that I didn't understand. In C, it's all about how the world is post-apocalyptic.
Correct.
Nobody can see.
Right.
But now there's 2 babies that are born that can see.
Yep.
So if nobody can see,
season,
how do they know that the babies can see?
There's legends of other people that can see, but they're usually put to death right away because it's considered like a curse.
Okay.
So again, the point of how do they know? I mean, there's just ways for them to figure out whether, like, I mean, if you're trying to dodge something, like, or if you're just walking and then, because they can hear really well.
Yes.
And they will hear like them like shift and walk around something. And they're like, what happened? Why would you do that? Oh, because there's something in your way.
So these kids have grown up in the series. They're not just babies.
Correct. Yeah. In the first series, the first season, they are baby. They're born in the first.
So they become toddlers and
within the second season, it's like, oh, we're toddlers. Time jump like 10 years.
Okay. All right.
So by the end of the second season, they are. Like,
I understand. I thought
20s.
this whole thing is about these kids that are still infants.
No.
And I'm like, how the hell can these people tell?
They are late teens, early 20s, like learning how. I mean, the male twin.
Yeah.
He's trying to learn how to fight, and he's got all these blind battle masters. And he's like, trying to teach him. Yeah. And he's like, but I can see they're like, that's actually a liability here.
Yeah.
Like you seeing, like you can still be blinded in a fight, in which case you now have no defense.
Yeah.
So you need to learn to fight like a blind person.
Yeah.
To be a better seeing fighter. So
makes sense.
It is. I mean, and it's good. It just
okay.
Honestly, when I came up with the list, it didn't jump out at me as something I should put on there. So
okay. All right. The only thing that you didn't also put on, and I understand, but shame on you, is Cobra Kai, because it's awesome.
I don't like Cobra Kai.
Of course you don't, because you're a martial artist at heart, and you know it's all fake, and it doesn't make sense, and it's. To me, it's just going down memory lane, and I can't believe how many people they've gotten to go down that memory lane with people.
Oh, I agree. Even beyond that, I think the acting is kind of poor.
Oh, everything's bad.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's great. I was actually sitting there going, what I broke it down today to Ursula, who didn't ask for that, but I broke it down for her anyway. I told her that the only part I like about this is there's no real good guy or bad guy. They do a really good job of showing, Daniel's thinking he's doing it for the right reasons, but then he dropped the ball on his son.
Right.
And then like, it shows that like, not everybody's good. Not everybody's bad. Everything's gray. You know, I like that. I like writing.
I get it, but then
no, you don't.
You cut to a scene where someone's delivering. It's like, really, that's the best they could get out of you at that time.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh, the best scene is when Johnny Lawrence is training Daniel. It's awesome because you can see this guy who, Ralph Macchio has to weigh $140.
Yeah, he's not a big guy.
Yeah. And you see him climbing a chain like a rope. And you're like, sorry, Daniel, I don't believe you can do that.
Yeah.
But I don't take it seriously. I just have a lot of fun watching it. So
maybe I'll get another shot.
Don't. I was just giving you shit. I think your list is
okay.
I was just totally giving you shit about Cobra Kai. Anyway.
I tried. I was in for 2 seasons and then I couldn't do anymore.
No?
Yeah. Yep. Somewhere at the end of season 2,
learning balance and defense.
Yeah, I was done.
All right.
I was so done with Daniel LaRusso and his car dealerships and shit like that. I was like, no, I'm done.
It sounds like somebody took Karate Kid personal.
Maybe, I don't know.
All right, man. Speaking of done, Greg, sign us out, sir.
All right, going through your week. It's going to be probably a pretty big news week. There's a lot of things coming out, even on the political landscape. Son of a bitch, yeah, this stuff's going to be happening internationally as well. There's things happening. So check your sources, know where you're getting your news from, who's paying for that news, and who might have a hidden agenda. Know your audience as you're talking to people, because if you are trying to persuade them with what you believe are facts, and if you're just presenting them poorly, you're not going to sway anybody's opinion. And as you're doing that, don't be a douche.
Boom, that's it. So for the Greg, this is Johnny saying, go watch Cobra Kai, and we'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.